Yeah, we're just slowing down, just slowing down.
Hi everyone, welcome back to a new episode of The New Unfiltered. Before I get into this episode, I just want to plug Metro Podcasts, which is where we are filming today. I filmed all of the episodes this week in New York here, and it's a super great space if you're an entrepreneur or you have a podcast. So head to the show notes to find out more about where we are filming. Before I introduce today's guest, I have a cute, fun little story that I think is really full circle and just shows what happens if you go and reach out to someone or a cold call and email someone. So I was dating this guy a few months ago in New York, and he suggested sushi for dinner. And I am not a Midtown girl. I really just don't like Midtown. I don't really fuck with it. I prefer to be anywhere but Midtown. It was torrential rain, and he was like, let's go to this place called Yasuda, I think it's called. Yep. Yeah, so of course I go on Yelp. It's, for some reason, Michelin-starred sushi, like right by Grand Central. But it was very corporate. So anyhow, we're sitting there, we're eating dinner, and this guy walks in with a hat on that was a very distinct hat, and he's super tall. And instantly I recognized him, and I was like, I'm pretty sure it's from LinkedIn. Now, the way that people view influencers and TikTokers and whatnot, and like Alex Earl and Addison Rae, is how I view other entrepreneurs. Like the same obsession I find people have with these, you know, teeny bopper kind of girls on the internet, I have for anyone in the entrepreneurial space, and I just have so much respect for entrepreneurs. So I went on LinkedIn immediately, mid sushi bite, and was like, oh my God, this is the guy who started Mezcla, which I knew he had the hat, then I recognized his face. So after dinner, I sent him a message and was like, I'm pretty sure you were eating sushi. I don't want you to think I was like stalking you, but I recognized you. Do you want to come on my podcast? So today I have the founder of Mezcla, which is a really awesome, you don't call it a protein bar, but I guess it's like a
Puff Crispy bar, yeah.
Which is kind of cool because this is like back in the day almost when people were really into Rice Krispie treats. And I feel like that totally faded away. And so I knew this brand. I've had it tons of different events, sampled it, bought it. It's also at Pret now in the city, which I didn't know. So yeah, okay. So tell me from the beginning, like how did this become a thing? You went to UVA, right?
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you for having me. Definitely pretty serendipitous how you met.
I know.
Pretty cool and interesting. But yeah, I was an athlete at UVA. And after practice, we always had protein bars, protein shakes. Also growing up, just being an athlete, always had protein bars. But for me, not a lot of exciting options, just like doughy, date-based, chalky. Everything was very dry or had terrible ingredients. So I really wanted to create something that I would want to eat, that my friends would want to eat, that my family would want to eat. So that was kind of the first piece of it. Subconsciously, I knew I wanted to create something. I thought the bar space was really interesting. The second part of it was that I was in a social entrepreneurship class, and I met a lady that had her own granola company, and she was taking these ingredients from her hometown in Mexico and actually integrating it into the granola. So I ran outside of the class after she finished presenting, basically told her like, look, I have an interesting idea in the bar space. I think what you're doing is really cool. Like, let's team up and try to do something together. And that's how Mezcla was really started. It means mixture in Spanish, and it was all about the mixture of ingredients and flavors. So that was really the impetus behind starting the brand.
Okay, so from being an athlete then to an entrepreneur, when you were in college, were you thinking I want to start a company?
The answer is yes. I always knew I wanted to start my own business. I didn't know when it would be. I didn't know what industry it would be, but I always knew that I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. I think it's pretty similar to sports in a lot of ways, honestly. And I just always was motivated by starting something from scratch. So I always knew I wanted to do it at some point.
Tell me though, what does that mean? It's kind of similar to sports, because I've actually never heard an entrepreneur compare entrepreneurship to kind of being an athlete.
For sure. I would say first off, like small team, right? I guess it depends on the sport, but at least like for me, right? I was on a team with 40 other people, and same thing, right? That's a small team. Here at Mezcla, we're 6, right? So it's all about like being a team player, growing the team together, being highly motivated. I think that, you know, entrepreneurship, you have to wake up every day and you have to grind because you know that there's someone else that has a target on your back. And I think that's kind of the same with sports as well, right? Like if you're competing, someone's always trying to beat you. And I think that it's very similar when you look at entrepreneurship. So I don't know, that's kind of the way I think about it. And I just wanted that same excitement. I wanted to come, you know, to work every day with that same passion that I had when I was in college. So I think there's a lot of crossover for sure.
We were just talking before this about, I mean, I lived in Austin for 4 years in the whole food and CPG space, and it is just wildly saturated right now. That was also why I was familiar with your story, is because you're in tons of stores. You're in what, Whole Foods? Give me some more.
Whole Foods, H-E-B, Fresh Market, now Pret. We're in Pressed, just launching Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. CVS now. So we're in a bunch of stores.
Which is insane for the bar space, because if you go to Whole Foods, right, there's probably
Yeah.
150 bars from like
Yeah.
back in the day, Lara bars to Cliff bars, which I don't know how the hell they're still around. So what do you feel like made this product so special, and what's the first step? I mean, how do you even get it in front of those buyers at a Whole Foods?
So I'll start with the first question, and then I'll move on to the second question. I think what makes these bars so special is really their flavor and their texture. And that's really, like I said, why I want to start the brand. I think that there's so many bars in the market. It is very saturated, but there's a ton of room for brands to stick out if they really can be differentiated and they can be good from a taste standpoint. And so for me, that was the first thing. Like, let's make a bar that actually is really tasty, that I would want to eat, not just for the nutrition, but also because I actually enjoy the taste. So that was like the first piece, right? Like that's really why I thought that we could win. And then in terms of getting it in front of buyers, I think it's a lot of persistence, right? Like I've been turned down so many times, and it's not been easy. But I also, right, like I think another correlation to sports is you get yelled at by your coach all of the time, and I'm used to that rejection. So no is definitely a word that I'm used to. And we get turned down a lot, but it's just like, let's push to the meeting. Once the buyer actually tries the product and hears the backstory, typically I think they're pretty excited. And then from there, what's nice now is we have the data to actually support why it makes sense for them to carry us on their shelves, right? Like we're doing so well, we're beating X, Y, and Z brands that you have on your shelves. This is why you should take us now.
A lot of co-founder relationships go south. So when you first met yours, what was the vibe? I mean, was there an age difference? What was intriguing about her expertise that you thought may help this company?
I mean, she is like literally maybe the nicest person I've ever met, honestly.
Okay, everyone in business is nice until they're not nice.
No, but she's like, when if you ever meet her, you'll see she's like next level. She's incredible, and her passion is also incredible. She's one of the more passionate, friendly, nice people that I've met, and I think right off the bat, that was one reason why I thought that it would make sense to actually do something with her. So I would say that's really the reason. And today, she's not actually operational on a day-to-day basis, but we still have an amazing relationship. Like I was just texting her with her yesterday. So I agree. Like, you can start off really nice, and then, a year later, things can go south and that relationship could sour. But it was just a vibe that I got from Coco. Like she's an incredible human being.
So if anyone's looking to enter into business with someone, what are some more like specific personality traits aside from being nice, like in comparison to what you bring to the table? Because not every founder can be good at everything, right?
For sure.
I'm assuming one of you is better perhaps at bookkeeping and the other one's better at actually making the product.
Well, for me, I think that a big piece is passion too. I think that it's very easy for things to go south when you feel like a co-founder isn't actually pulling their weight, right? So I think that if you're going to enter into any agreement or you want to start a business with someone, you have to actually make sure that they're not only passionate, but also hardworking and disciplined and can actually go through with what they're saying they want to go through with. Because I think it's very easy to have an idea for a business and to talk about ideas and conceptualize. It's much harder to actually execute. So I think that's the first thing, right? Like passionate, disciplined, hardworking. What like I said about our relationship, right? Me and Coco, it's not like she's operational on a day-to-day basis. So there's also a lot less to argue about, to fight about, right? Like we have a very good relationship right now, but I can't necessarily speak to like having a true co-founder that you're sitting there every day with arguing with. That's a little bit different. So.
And you're a team of 6?
We're a team of 6 right now.
So when you're hiring, who were the first people that you hired for Mezcla?
So our COO, Yoga, he's incredible. He's honestly like.
His name's Yoga?
His name is Yoga, which is a really, really cool name.
I've never heard of that name.
Yeah, very, very cool name.
Yeah.
Funny, like we were at Expo West and there's actually like a yoga session in the morning, and someone was in the hallway and they were like, "Where's yoga?" And he's like, "I'm right here." And they're like, "No, we're talking about the yoga session that everyone's doing." But yeah, he's incredible. I mean, we wouldn't be where we are today without him, honestly. He has an investment banking and consulting background. And what was nice about hiring him as really the first Mezcla employee and a true partner to me right now is he came in with a really nice breadth of experience. He wasn't necessarily an operator before, but he was really used to systems and processes, and he was really smart and sharp and hardworking. So he came in right off the bat and was able to do basically everything that I was able to do pretty quickly, which was nice. I think in the beginning of a company, hiring a generalist is very nice because they can do so many things. You can plug them into many different areas. I think as a company grows, then it gets a bit more important to hire specialists, right? So like Yoga was our first hire. Then we hired Kevin in operations, who was actually a specialist for a small period of time, and now he actually is acting more like a generalist. And then we hired our director of operations, who was very focused on operations. We then hired a marketing associate, Paulina, very focused on marketing, and then we hired a director of sales, Dan, very focused on sales. So now I would say we have like a few generalists, me, Yoga, and Kevin, and then a few specialists, Dan, Ethan, and Paulina.
It's an interesting week to have you on because of what just happened in the startup space and I don't know why this exploded or like became such a big thing, but there is a market in Austin and Chicago called Foxtrot, and I guess it was acquired by another company called Dom something,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden it just like blew up and now they're out of business. So in the CPG space, I mean, is there talk about why this happened? I'm assuming maybe Mezcla was even in.
We actually we were never in Foxtrot.
You
That
weren't?
was an
Okay.
account that I was wanting that we were never able to get into.
Why did you want it?
I just thought it was a cool, trendy account. I thought a lot of tastemakers actually went into Foxtrot, and I thought our product would have fit really nicely into their assortment. So
And they rejected you?
we did. We got rejected a few times, or actually, like I guess we didn't necessarily get a response, maybe. So that's a rejection.
Do you remember who you contacted? Like are you the one doing that kind of sales call?
In the beginning, I was doing all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I submitted probably once or twice, and then I think Kevin submitted maybe once or twice as well.
You just never heard back.
No, we didn't hear back.
What does a CPG, I know I got to go back to the first question, but what does a CPG founder do if they just don't hear back? Because D2C and then like direct, like online as well. I mean, I'm assuming the in-store experience for a customer to find this product is pretty critical.
Yeah, for sure.
So what do you do if they don't respond? Do you pick up the phone? Do you just let it go cold?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think a few things. Number one, it depends on the priority of the account, right? Like, is it really important that you're in that account? It's tough because, like, a big part of me in the beginning was like, I just need to be so annoying, and it's like it literally annoy people until they're like, I can't take him anymore.
That's
Like, we
how
just
I am.
take their product. I think that's worked a few times. I think other times people have been like I literally never want to talk to this person again. But I think for me, it's like getting the product in front of them. Okay, if they say no, can we saturate the area around them with product? And then can we show them the data saying, hey, like, look, all these stores in your area or that are competitors to you carry us, and we're doing really well. Like, it's hard to say no at that point, right?
Yeah.
That's the way I think about it. And then outside of that, obviously, like, if there's a warm connection, that's always the best way to go. So I always look on LinkedIn, the buyer, like, who does the buyer know? Who are their warm connections? Are they open to
that's a
intro
good
me?
idea.
So, yeah, just like trying to be, a little more thoughtful about it as opposed to just like sending a cold email.
You're in so many stores though now. Do you still ask people for intros?
Oh, all the time, yeah.
Do you know what you say? I mean, when you're writing that message, because I know a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs or people who want to build a personal brand, they always are so nervous about asking someone to introduce them to someone else.
For me, I think it's like, number one is it always has to be very tailored, and number two is it always has to be humble. Like, I think that I'm trying to figure out the right way to phrase this, but like going in with arrogance, which I think some people can do because they think, oh, I'm a founder and this and that. Like, I know there's so much I don't know. I know there's so much I still have to learn, right? I know we're still really small in the grand scheme of things. So I think like going with the tailored ask and being humble is always the best approach. And looks, it doesn't always work, but I think a lot of the times it does work because people, I think, really like that, and they also want to help. So I think that's kind of the way I think about it.
There is an unlimited amount to learn, and anyone I meet who thinks they know it all as a founder, I mean, I just think they're gonna fail. And I've consulted on companies, and the founders are just so narcissistic, and it's like, I don't know, and I don't know if you agree, but there's like a special line between, of course you think your product is the best, right? But also you have to be grounded in the sense that like if anything can go wrong, you can be sued at any time. Like someone could hate this.
For sure.
Well,
and I think too, like, we bring in advisors, and we bring in advisors for specific functions, right? Like we bring in an operations advisor, a sales advisor, and I think for me, it's like they know so much more than I do. Am I going to go and tell them like they're wrong? Look, can I disagree with them? Absolutely.
Sure.
Can I have my own opinions? Absolutely. But I think for me, it's just like knowing that there's so much I don't know and trying to learn from these people. So yeah, I think in the end of the day, like being arrogant and thinking you know everything can be a big downfall of entrepreneurs because you don't know everything, and the people that have done this before at least have more insight, right? Again, I think that it's yours to distill what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. But I think being humble is like always the best approach.
okay, I totally swapped questions. So go back. So what do you think happened with Foxtrot? And like in the CPG space, is this something that can be expected with some of these kind of cooler, bougier markets that pop up?
Yeah, to be honest, it's tough. I don't know exactly what happened with Foxtrot, so I don't want to make up a story here, a pine on that. But I think what I will say is, right now, people are so focused. Investors, acquirers are so focused on profitability, And as I think about our growth and, you know, what I would tell any other CPG founders is you obviously need to grow, but think about the unit economics, think about the business, right? Like if you don't have a true underlying business, it doesn't matter if you grow 10x or 20x, like you have to actually be able to see a profit at some point. And I think for me, it's something I'm trying to drive home to our team is like, we need to have a really, really strong fundamental business. That's the only way we're going to survive, right? You can't go out and raise money forever. So again, not exactly sure what happened with Foxtrot, but I just think in general, when it comes to business and CPG specifically, because that's what I know, it's all about building a really strong business. And you could burn money. I think that's okay as long as you have that strong business and those business fundamentals, right, which are based off of unit economics, in my opinion. So that's kind of the way I think of it.
Yeah. What did it cost to start this?
Oh, that's a good question. When you say start, what do you mean? Because I think there's a lot of ways you could look at that.
The first variation of this bar, right? And what was the first flavor?
First flavor, there were 3 of them. So matcha, hot chocolate, and peanut butter.
And what was, I guess, that cost to get that out and just have this product and the design and then the actual product on the inside? Do you remember that cost?
Yeah, the first true cost to get like bars on the market was probably about 50 to 70 grand.
Okay, oh, that doesn't sound that high.
No, but that was like the first true cost to get bar on the market without doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
The first raise we ever did was like 400 to 500K.
Okay.
So again, like getting the bar on the market 50 to 70 grand, but like we would have been out of business in 3 months or 4 months. So yeah, I would say like if you want to start a CPG business, you don't have to raise. Right? You can start off with crazy strong unit economics right off the bat. I think it'll be very difficult and will take a long time. I think typically if you want to start a CPG business and you're going the VC route, I think that you're probably going to have to raise between 250 and 500.
Okay.
There's some businesses, like I said, there's some businesses that haven't done that and they're incredible. But typically, I think that's like the rule of thumb. It also depends, right? Are you doing beverage? Are you doing dry? Are you doing refrigerated, frozen? So I think that also depends as well.
I've never done a proper raise for a startup, but I know a lot of founders, obviously, who have, and the process of fundraising is just insane. And I would like to get into some specific details because overall, how much has Mezcla raised now?
7.5 million.
Which is like Series A, B, C.
Yeah, Series A, yeah.
Yeah, and that was like one raise at 7.5 or all together?
That was all together.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's so much that goes in behind the scenes, and then they still expect you to run the company, right?
For sure, yeah.
What was the process like as a young founder to get that amount of money?
I think again, like so much rejection. I think I've been running the business now for 4.5 years, and for the first year to 2 years, I couldn't raise any money. I think number one, I was obviously a young founder, so it's hard to trust a young founder that doesn't have experience right off the bat. The second thing is I was very focused on unit economics the whole time and telling a very transparent and true story. And I think that in 2020, 2021, there was so much money. Yeah. The market was so frothy, and there were a lot of entrepreneurs that were saying, I can hit, 5, 10, 15x in the next 2-3 years. And investors were just so excited about that. They were pouring money into those businesses. Whereas I was saying, we could hit 2x next year, or, 2x in 2 years, right? And I was very focused on just like telling this thoughtful but like tiered growth story as opposed to this exponential growth story. So it was very, very, very difficult for me to raise in the beginning. What I think was really helpful for me was telling the transparent and true story. It enabled us to get some cash in the door. And actually our largest investor to date put like $45,000 in 2.5-3 years ago. They saw us execute. A year later, they put $1 million in. A year later, they put $2 million in more. So I think what was really cool for us is we showed our investors that we can execute, and they were being very honest and transparent with our projections, our forecasts, our story, and that's helped us to raise more.
Did it go through your mind? Like, was there a fear for you that this wouldn't work, that they would lose their money, that you would end up having to deal with the repercussions of taking money from people and it just failing?
Oh, for sure. I mean, every day, right? I think that like people work really hard to make money, and I have a huge responsibility to them, so it stresses me out. I think that stress motivates me. I do not want to lose anyone any money. I just want to make people a lot of money, make people very happy. So I think that it stresses me out every day, and I think that it's a good thing for me because it pushes me to just be that much more on the ball, to work that much harder. That's one of my biggest stresses for sure. I just want to make sure that people are happy with the job I'm doing and that I'm growing people's capital because people work really hard for it, obviously. So.
Yeah, and how many investors are there in that 7.5?
So out of the 7.5, we have 2 investors that make up like 4 to 5 of it.
Okay.
And then we have probably, 30 investors that make up the additional 2.5 to 3.5.
I interviewed Tyler Dank from Beehive, and I can't remember. I asked him something about, I think he was wearing like Golden Goose or something, because they raised like a lot of money.
Yeah.
And he said something, when you raise money and you get the 7.5 or whatever, anything close, that doesn't mean that you're taking that as a salary. Like,
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's funny. People think, you raise so much money, you're doing whatever, you're making so much money. That's not true at all, right? I'm flying to Minneapolis later today in the middle seat and coach, right? Yeah. So it's not like,
I would pay the extra 10 to not do a middle seat.
Yeah. But again, also, I think it goes back to, like, with the money we raise, because I fly first class, yes. But I don't want to be wasting the money on me flying first class when it could go somewhere else, even though it's only a few $100s more. I had that like internal thought last night. I actually went on the Delta app and I was going to check in and it said for only $400 more you can get first class. And I was like, I really want it, but you know what? This money can go somewhere else. So yeah, it definitely because we raised that money does not mean that I'm taking that to the bank by any means.
And what about like dividing that among a team of 6, right? For people who don't know, I mean, who decides where that 7.5 goes to, what someone's salary is?
So the majority of the cash is not being used for salaries. We have a very lean team. This year we're projected to do between 8 and 10 million in sales, and we have 6 people on our team. So I think we're doing a very good job keeping it lean. We look at basically market comps. So for example, I just say, a VP of sales. We don't have a VP of sales in our company, so it's easy to use this as an example. But a VP of sales, let's say their salary is, I'm making up a number, $150,000. Then we'll look at that. How good is our candidate? If he's really good, maybe we'll pay $160. If he's seen market averages, we always want high performers. Maybe we'll pay $150, and then we'll always give some sort of equity component because everyone needs to have skin in the game here, and we want people to feel like they're actually not only if they are making a difference, like they're actually gaining because they are making a difference. So that's the way I think about it. It's market comps. We typically pay a little bit over market comps because I think we have a really solid team, and then we have an equity piece as well.
I was talking to someone else the other day about that. A lot of people going into the startup space don't know that if they're working for a startup to ask for equity. Yeah. So did you present that to all of your team from the get-go?
Yeah. Everyone, yeah.
And then was it a different amount of equity per?
Yeah, for sure. I think that it depends, right? Yoga was our first employee, our first hire. So obviously, he gets more equity than our 20th hire would get, hypothetically speaking. So I think it depends on the person. Also, what we'll do sometimes is offer, like, do you want a higher salary or do you want more equity, depending on the person. So I think it's really situation dependent, honestly.
Do you think if someone started at a CPG brand like Mezcla or whatever, that they could ask their boss, can you give me equity?
Like no salary, just equity?
No, salary plus equity at the beginning.
I think they could and I think they should. I mean, I think that most small brands, at a certain point, you're not getting equity anymore, but most small brands give equity, and if they don't, my perspective is they should. Yeah. Because I think it incentivizes people that much more. So I would definitely ask. And we were in a Mondelez program this summer, and Jackie Haney, who ran the program, was very focused on like fearless asking. I think there's as long as you're like doing it respectfully, right? I don't think there's anything wrong for like fearlessly asking for what you want. The other person can say no, but at least you asked and took your shot.
Oh, that's so cute. Fearless asking. I like that. So you're in New York City. I used to live here back in the day, but in Austin, this space, especially with CPG, was such a thing. All of these founders from LA seemed to move to Austin during COVID, I think, and like built their brands there. I can't imagine doing it in New York. So what is the ecosystem here for the startup, for CPG space? Yeah.
Well, first off, I'll say I travel a ton. So like I'm going to, like I said, Minnesota today. Next week I'm going to Florida.
Are these for conferences?
For conferences and meetings, yeah. So there's definitely a ton of traveling. I would say I think there's a pretty cool group of founders here. Like I think Wednesday night I'm getting dinner with a bunch of founders. One of the guys from Gia, the non-alcoholic beverage. I think there's a really cool Mesa from Behave is here. There's a really cool group of founders here. But I think you also can go outside of CPG and find really cool tech founders here, right? You can find really cool apparel founders here. So I think you can find, like, one of my friends from high school started the brand Parade. I think you can find some really cool founders in New York that are also outside of CPG. And I think that's cool too because you get different perspectives, right? So yeah, I think there's definitely a really good group of founders here for sure.
In comparison to Austin, I mean, New York and LA are the top of the top, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean, Austin is an easier market, I think, to kind of saturate if you're starting. Would you advise anyone who wanted to start a company to do it in New York off the bat? Would you say, like, it could be easier in a smaller place?
I mean, I think my perspective, and I could be completely wrong in this, is just my thought, is it doesn't necessarily really matter where you are. A lot of my connecting is done like on my phone or on my computer on LinkedIn. I speak to founders all the time that don't live in New York, and we just catch up. Like I was talking to, I don't know if you know Matt Fellman from Moku, but I was texting with him last week, and he lives in California, right? So I think that a lot of people I speak to virtually. It's definitely different than actually meeting people in person. But for me, I think it's all about like being on LinkedIn, connecting with people there, you know, and then developing that relationship offline, like on the phone when you travel, go meet them. So my perspective is it doesn't really matter if you're in New York, LA, Austin. But I also don't live in Austin, so maybe if I moved there, I'd say something completely different.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So you really think that an in-person meeting, I mean, it seems like you take a lot of those, is better than a phone call?
Yeah, I do. I think that there's just something so much more tangible about meeting in person, especially if you're going to meet with a buyer. I think it's really important you're there in person, honestly.
Have you ever done an in-person meeting with a buyer and then be like, I hate this?
No, actually.
Okay.
Basically, all my in-person meetings I've really enjoyed. I don't love like the travel piece. Like I don't love that, you know, tonight I'm flying to Minnesota, then tomorrow I'm flying back.
It's only one night.
One night, and then next week I'm flying to Florida on Monday night, and then I'm flying back on Tuesday night. I don't love that. But I think, you know, unfortunately, that's part of being an entrepreneur too. You got to do things that you don't necessarily love. Also, I think another crossover being an athlete. I guess in general, just, you know, in life, you have to do that too. But I think in entrepreneurship, it seems so glorious, but there's a lot of stuff that like isn't very glorious, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's also a big crossover being an athlete because the games are awesome and you're winning, that's awesome. But like, what about off fall where no one was watching you and you were practicing at 7 a.m. and it was freezing, you know?
Do you still play sports?
I do, yeah. Actually, I played. Well, so this past summer, I played on Team Israel, the lacrosse team for like our national team, which is pretty incredible. I know it probably doesn't look like it anymore. I played. I guess I ended in June, July. That was when the tournament was. So, yeah, I guess that was the last time I like officially really played. And then I think our next tournament technically is like 2027. It's the World Games again. So I have to get in shape for that if I want to do it again, which I think I do.
Yeah. So. What does a day in the life of you look like when you're not flying in middle season?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, what do you do all day? Because I think people think entrepreneurship, and especially with me being more of like a personal brand, that it's so glamorous. And like I posted a video a few weeks ago, and people like it really resonated. I was like, I don't spend. I mean, 99% of the time is just like bullshit stuff that I don't want to do, and it's like the 1%. But of course, you don't sit posting that stuff on social media because people don't want to see that. So what is the reality of this kind of lifestyle?
The thing is, it's so different every week and every day. I mean, for the last, like, just to give a peek behind the veil, for the last month, we've been trying to negotiate this manufacturing agreement. So, you know, it's pretty unsexy, right? Like every day for a few hours, I'm reading through a contract, going through with Yoga
Why
COO.
is this taking so long?
There's just so much back and forth, and like manufacturing and CPG is like a marriage in some ways. So then there are also like multiple parties involved. So, you know, you send over one set of red lines, it takes them a week to get back to you. And then when they get back to you, there are a bunch of other red lines, and the contract's 20 pages, so that takes a long time. So like, I mean, that's been the last like week for me. You know, once we get this across the finish line, my goal is to start optimizing and improving our formula because I think there are things we can do better. So like that's going to be, you know, a lot of me like actually getting into the nitty gritty, figuring out like what I think we can do better, how we can do better, like going back and forth with a bunch of samples, trying a bunch of different kinds of chocolates and compound chocolates, and it's it's not the not glamorous part, right?
Trying chocolate sounds kind of glamorous.
Trying chocolate's pretty fun, but I think after like you try a certain amount, you're like, I don't want to have any more chocolate ever again. So yeah, in the beginning it's fun, and then I think it gets tiring. Yeah.
But what do you do when you're not working?
I've really gotten into playing tennis. I love playing tennis. It's
I
a great way
tennis.
to, honestly, I just think it's a great way to stay active. And I wish I could just go out and jog, but I'm not, I just don't love it. So it's a great way for me to stay active and for me to have fun. And also I think it brings in a bit of the competitiveness as well. So that's one thing. I'm a huge foodie, which is one reason why I obviously started the brand. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and a lot of it was in food. Like if I didn't do Mezcla, at some point I wanted to start like my own restaurant or hospitality group. So I'm a big foodie. I love like trying restaurants around New York. And then I would just say like, hanging out with my family and my girlfriend are things I like to do, honestly. I'm pretty low key for the most part, so.
What are some of your favorite places in New York? I know your favorite sushi place.
Yeah, I would say, obviously I grew up here, so I've been eating at Yasuda for a long time. I would say that's probably my favorite sushi place. The head chef did just leave.
Oh,
and
no.
he's opening up his own restaurant in 6 months, so I'm really, really excited to go there. There's a place called Servos downtown. It's incredible seafood. That's one of my new favorite places. There's a place called Torien. It's a yakitori place, also incredible. I would say right now, those are probably my 3 favorites, honestly.
Do you envision Mezcla as eventually getting acquired? Do you want to do this for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the goal is definitely to be acquired at some point.
Was that the goal, though, when you started it?
Yeah, I think the way I think about it is I love starting businesses, and I love starting business that I'm passionate about, right? Like I don't want to start a business like I don't want to start a tree business because I think it's fun and I want to start it, right? Like I want to start a business that I'm really passionate about. But I also think for me, I don't know if I want to be doing any one set thing for 20 or 30 years. So I think that I welcome the constant change, but at the same time, like right now, it's just like head down, grinding, trying to make it as successful as possible. And part of that is like being the best partners to our retailers we can, delivering the best product to the customers that we can, and also delivering the best results to our investors. So I think yes, at some point is the goal to be acquired for sure. But for now, I think that it's easy to think about that, but it's more important just to keep your head down and I think just like do the right things consistently.
I just saw the other day that Kim Kardashian's fund, I think it's called Sky Invest or something, they were struggling to raise more money. I mean, I would assume you're like equally deep in the startup space, so you're aware of like funds and raising and whatnot. And I thought it was really interesting because she's obviously such a big celebrity, but the fact that she's struggling to get this billion or whatever they were trying, I mean, from your insight, why would that be a difficult thing? Why would an investor want to pool like all investors' money? They don't just necessarily take their own money and go 100% in.
Yeah, well, I think just to answer your second question first, it's just all risk, right? I think that there are a lot of people that can easily fund businesses on their own, but still want to raise capital because it just takes a little bit of risk off the table. So I would say that's the answer to your second question. On the first side of things, on the first question side of things, I don't know if it's exactly answering it, but I think it's a tough environment to raise money right now. And I think that people are focused less on just like growth and, the excitement of putting money into something and the glitz and the glamour of it. And they're more focused on, okay, can this investment actually make me more money? Or is this gonna be something that's cool for me to talk about at the dinner table with my friends, right? So I think that capital is shifting right now, at least from what I'm seeing, towards being more focused on, can this actually generate a return for me as opposed to just something fun and cool to talk about?
It's also been a market where I feel like 6 years they've been saying it's hard to raise money.
Yeah.
I mean, is that something that is going to be happening for forever? I don't understand how every founder can start a company knowing that it's so hard to raise, but it's also like, will it ever not be hard to raise?
I actually didn't experience this, but from what I hear, I think 2020 and 2021 were pretty easy markets to raise in. Some of the easier markets in the last probably 10 to 15 years to raise in. But I will say it's still always hard to raise money. Like I said before, I mean, people work so hard to make money, so they don't love parting with it. And I mean, that obviously makes a ton of sense. So I think it's always going to be hard to raise money. If you're getting into this thinking like you're going to be able to raise the snap of a finger, you probably shouldn't be an entrepreneur because it's really tough. So I would say it's always hard. I think there are times where it's maybe more difficult and times where it's maybe a little bit more easy.
You said it took you 2 years to raise.
Yeah.
At the beginning. And that was with your co-founder as well, or just you?
That was mostly me, yeah.
Okay.
So basically the way the timeline worked is like Coco and I met the fall of my senior year in college. We worked on things for, a few months, trying to figure out the recipes, trying to figure out what would make sense. And then I moved to New York. I actually moved home after college because I decided I wasn't going to go for a full-time role and I was going to start Mezcla full-time. And at that point, Coco was also very focused on, she had another job as well. She was very focused on her other job. So we made the decision that she obviously has equity in the business. She's going to be a partner in the business, but I'm going to actually operate. So that's really like where I started, like the wheels started turning and everything started really moving.
It seems like there's also kind of nice flexibility between you both there, as like knowing your roles, but also being the face of it. Was that strategically done? Because I mean, obviously, like this is like your baby, this is your company. But was there ever any kind of power struggle with what she wanted to be known as and what you wanted to be known as?
No, I think that was like
That's awesome.
It was pretty. It was like. What's the word I'm looking for? It was like we came to a very mutual agreement, and with not even mutual agreement. It was so easy. It wasn't like we even need to sit down. Like I think it was very clear, and you know she's still, if you go on her Instagram, she's still always posting on Mezcla, right? Like she's a huge brand advocate and she loves the brand. Like I said, like I literally texted her yesterday. So yeah, I think it's very rare, but we actually like navigate through everything without like really any issues. Which is really nice.
Yeah. Okay, so this company, you guys are in all these stores. What's the next step? Are there more stores? I mean, there's local stores. Yeah, no, you're in all the chains.
There are definitely a bunch more stores we can get into. I think for me now, it's just continuing to be a good partner to our partners and continuing to drive more value for them, because I think we will open up every single door we want to open up if we continue to drive value for our existing partners, right? If we drive more velocity at Whole Foods, if we crush it with CVS, if we continue to do really well with the fresh market, if we continue to do really well with HEB, it's going to be hard to deny us as a brand presenting if you're Albertsons, if you're Safeway, if you're Target, if you're Costco. So I think that, you know, what's next is just like continuing to execute really well. We're updating our branding a little bit to make things a little bit more clear from a packaging side of things, and we're trying to optimize our formula a little bit as well.
You know, I had no idea that they make you give free samples, right, at the beginning to these.
Yeah, so it's called a free fill. So like basically, you know, any store you get into for the most part has a free fill. So I'll just say, you know, store XYZ, they have 5 locations. You have to give 1 box of every flavor.
What if you don't have the money? I think that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I think that, you know, that's why CPG is expensive.
Yeah.
That's what people have to raise. I mean, maybe some brands are able to get around it. I haven't really heard anyone that is. But yeah, that's why it's really tough.
What's one piece of advice you have for anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur in their 20s?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's so situation dependent, but I think that if you feel like you have the stomach for being turned down, and if you feel like you're gritty and able to really push through a lot of hard times and difficult times, I would say go for it. Yeah. Because the worst that can happen is you're young, it doesn't go well, you have a really cool experience under your belt, and you can take that and apply those learnings to anything you do in the future. So, I mean, it's the best decision, one of the best decisions I've ever made, and I would urge people who feel like they can do it and feel like they have the recipe for success to actually go out and try. Yeah. That's my perspective.
I like that you say the stomach churn, because I think you need to have it, but you also need to equally want the success on the other side, right? Like, I don't want to be rejected, but the wins that I've had made it all so worth it.
For sure, yeah. And like Whole Foods is a great example. We got turned down from Whole Foods a few times, and then the buyer ended up finding our products in a local juice shop and reached out to us and was like, we'd all love to chat. And that was like one of the best, most amazing feelings ever. And it was awesome to get in there and then start like putting up really good numbers too, and being like, you know, like, thank you for taking a chance on us, right? Like, we really appreciate it. And like, we're so happy to be like showing you that we can actually succeed.
I've had so many experiences like that, and it's like I wish I could go back and be like, I told you, like I believed in it, why didn't you? But sometimes it's just like it's timing, right? Okay, where can everyone find Mezcla as well as you on social media?
Yeah, for sure. Mezcla, most importantly, we can find on Amazon, Whole Foods, HEB, Fresh Market, CVS, Pret, Chibo in airports. We're in Erewhon, we're in Mother's Market, we're in a bunch of places. There's actually a store located on our website, eatmezcla.com, where you can find all the stores we're in. So yeah, that's where you can find us.
Well, thank you. I don't see the guy that I was seeing when I met you, but I don't see him, but I got the best podcast guest ever out of that.
There we go, yeah.
So thank you. Congratulations on this, and everyone who wants to find out more about Griffin's story and Mezcla, I will put in the show notes, and you can come back every single Wednesday for a new episode of The New Unfiltered. Bye, guys.